What's up guys, Rapskyin here. In today's video, I wanted to talk about Halo Infinite's campaign and whether or not focusing solely on Master Chief is the right move when it comes to the campaign story. So we know that Infinite's story is a spiritual reboot of Halo CE, and 343 has straight up said that Master Chief will be the focus. However, I can't help but question if focusing solely on the Chief is the right way to go. But before we get into that, if you enjoy this video, be sure to hit like and subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subs before the Halo Infinite flight this summer, and we are less than 10 away. I want to thank you guys for checking out the videos and leaving your comments and feedback. I really do appreciate it. But now, let's discuss if the Halo Infinite campaign should focus on Master Chief. In previous Halo games, like Halo 2 and 5, we of course got to play as Halo himself, the Master Chief, during the campaigns. But we also got to experience the story parallel to Chief with other protagonists like Arbiter and Locke. And in other Halo games like ODST and Reach, we even got to experience stories that didn't directly involve the Chief. I've always found being able to experience a story from the perspective of multiple characters to be really fascinating. In Halo 2, we got to see the continuation of Chief and humanity's story after the destruction of the Halo Ring, but we also got to see the inner workings of the Covenant and get a better understanding of their hierarchy system and their beliefs as a faction. And then when we got to actually play as the Arbiter, it came as a complete surprise, and I felt like seeing his side of the story really added a lot. Seeing his downfall from a fleet commander to then become the Arbiter and ultimately get his revenge after realizing the Prophets and the Great Journey were all one big lie. Without us as the player experiencing everything the Arbiter went through, the Covenant would essentially still just be evil aliens. Which they kind of are, but now because of him, we now know there are nuanced politics and beliefs within the Covenant's different species and ranks. And I felt like this insight really adds to Chief's side of the story, giving it even more weight than before. In Halo 5, we had another main protagonist of the story, Locke, but this time around, they really dropped the ball. There are a lot of reasons Halo 5's story failed. Some of the biggest reasons were due to the misleading marketing with the Hunt the Truth audio drama that made it seem like Chief was blatantly attacking his own people and rebelling against the UNSC. And in the trailers leading up to Halo 5's release, we saw Locke and Chief's perspectives being completely opposite from one another, making it seem like Locke would be an enemy to the Chief and vice versa. This is really interesting because it would have been the first time that someone in the UNSC was poised to be the direct enemy of their supposed hero, Master Chief. Not to mention this enemy was also a Spartan, where in reality, we got a very watered down version of that where Locke and Chief are essentially just playing hide and go seek with each other. The execution was just super messy, not to mention Locke as a character was just bland. Before Halo 5, Locke was in a movie called Nightfall that was supposed to give us some backstory on him to flesh out his character. It was terrible, by the way, but even that didn't do anything for his character. He never really had any kind of arc like the Arbiter, and he was just a very by-the-book, square, boring character. After one clunky fight scene and the clearing up of a simple miscommunication, Locke and Chief were seemingly fine with each other at the end of the game. It also didn't help that Locke got way more screen time than Chief. When compared to Halo 2, Arbiter and Chief were split about 50-50. With all that being said, I don't think the fact that Locke was a playable character in Halo 5's campaign was a bad thing. I think the fault lies heavily on the execution and the expectations we had as a player. However, considering the backlash from the community regarding Halo 5 and the fact that it's been almost 10 years, can you believe that? It's been almost 10 years since Halo 4 came out, since we've got a solely Master Chief focused campaign, maybe having a second playable protagonist should take the backseat for now. But I do think that having side stories to complement Chief's would be pretty cool to have. It looks like we're going to have side missions in Infinite, which is really cool and something that's never been done in a Halo game. And I can imagine the side missions kind of playing off of ODST's formula. ODST and Infinite actually have a lot of similarities. We have a separated survivor after a horrific event, and they are both exploring an open environment to find out what happened to the world and their allies. One of the things I liked most in ODST's campaign were finding the audio logs throughout New Mombasa where we got the audio drama with Sadie's side story. In the 2020 campaign demo, we saw on the mini-map that there's a collectible that looks like a walkie-talkie. So I wonder if that's going to be a side mission with some Marines you can find, or maybe an audio drama collectible of some sort. We can only speculate right now, but I think seeing something like that in the campaign would be great. Like listening to a squad of Marines or Spartans struggling as they try to survive after being ambushed by the Banished. Like something like that, man. Like that would be awesome. In ODST, I liked finding items from your squad that clued you in on what happened to them even more, because you learn what happened to them by actually playing it. In Resident Evil 7, there are videotapes that you can find and play them in a VCR. And I remember the first time I played the game and put in a tape, I set my controller down to watch the cutscene, only to then realize that I was actually controlling the character in the tape. This is a really cool and surprising way to gain further insight on what happened and what I may come up against in the future. Now, imagine something similar to that in Infinite. Imagine you come across a fallen Marine and put his chip in your helmet to find out what happened, just like Chief did in CE with Jenkins. But instead of watching what happened, you play what happened. And it wouldn't have to just be limited to Marines. Maybe you find dead Spartans, banished data pads, or even terminals like we had in CE Anniversary and Halo 2 Anniversary. Like, just imagine coming across a terminal in one of the Forerunner structures and then actually playing as a Forerunner soldier in the Forerunner Flood War and getting some clues of what happened to the Forerunners on Zeta Halo and what threats may be waiting for you there. I think there's some pretty cool opportunities to give you a deeper sense of the world around you and to tell stories that are complementary to Chief's. This way you don't have to have a second playable protagonist, but you can still enhance the story with other playable characters and side missions throughout the game. This is something that's never been done before in a Halo game, but it would still be familiar and it would seem like a logical step from things we've seen in previous Halo games. Which actually brings us to discussing the possibility of campaign DLC for Halo Infinite in the future. In the June 2021 Inside Infinite blog, Joe Staten had some interesting things to say about our customized multiplayer Spartans and how they would take on a more active role in Halo's story later on in future seasons. And that customizing what our Spartan looks and sounds like is a very important part of that. As of right now, we don't know what this means exactly, but it sounds like we may have story DLC in future seasons of Halo Infinite that somehow involve our very own Spartan, which really makes me think we'll see something like we did in Reach, where our multiplayer Spartan took the place of Noble 6 in the campaign, or possibly something like Spartan Ops in Halo 4, except good. If this turns out to be the case though, I think this is really exciting and an interesting way to add on to the main story in Infinite, or a way to tell completely new ones. So to recap, I think that having multiple protagonists in a Halo campaign is not a bad thing if it's done properly, but for now, Chief should be and will be the focus of Infinite's story. But I'm always down for seeing complementary side stories, and in the future, maybe even entirely new ones. Maybe we'll get to play as the bad guys in future campaign DLC, or maybe as Jerome or the Arbiter during Infinite's story. The possibilities are infinite. But let me know what you guys think. Should Chief be the sole focus of Infinite's campaign? Do you think there should be other playable characters? Do you agree or disagree with anything we talked about in this video? Let me know down in the comments below. And again, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subs before Infinite's flight this summer, and we are less than 10 away. So I would really appreciate that, guys. That would be so awesome if we could hit that goal. But that is going to do it for today's video, guys. I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. Rapscallion out.